Had you put it on me? First, I love your. You ready? Are we ready? Everyone's just having a plan, but everything's good. She really went. She went.
Oh, you need to speak.
And a chance to have a chat
Right,
with you.
can we start, guys? Can we have some quiet, please? My great pleasure to introduce Piers, who might be unfamiliar to any of you. I'm sure we're in for a very entertaining time. Just to let you know what the schedule is, Lee.
What's that?
Piers is going to give his presentation in two halves, and we're going to have Nick Collerstrong talk about the heartbeat of the sun in between, and then it'll be supper. So it's kind of challenging. Very short, very short. So this will be an entertaining hour or so, I'm sure. I give you Piers.
Thank you very much. Oh, already am I? If I want to move around, okay. When I'm standing here, you like that. Is that all right though? Or is this better?
That's better.
That's better.
Can you handle
Why
it?
don't you move this slightly? Well, it's all right now. Is that good?
Yeah.
But that was better.
Where do you more comfortable?
Turn the other one up. Turn that one up. That's good. Right, fantastic. Okay. Greetings. I'm Piers Corbyn and I'm the brother of Jeremy Corbyn. As I said, he used to be my brother, now I'm his brother. Okay, and anything I say may not be used in evidence against him or me. Right, so I'm going to talk about the electric universe and Sun-Earth relations, and then later I'm going to do something about the convergence of different theories in cosmology. That'll be a separate thing after Nick has talked about heartbeat of the sun. Okay. And before I get underway, I'm going to have a little prologue about the political and economic and academic and scientific situation we're in, because I think that 5G conversation we had earlier was very important and indicative of the times. Now, this stuff is sold to us under, you know, a false narrative. Everything now is sold to us under a false narrative. So we are part of the war on false narratives. And there is a need for a united action between different people in the wars on false narratives. I'm not going to spend long on the prologue, but I think it's important to kind of get this in our minds, because the electric universe is not going to topple the whole of academia on its own. But we do need to topple the whole of academia. We live in very exciting times and very dangerous times. Just to give you just some facts, right? Citizens Online contains on it, which works for government, the Cabinet Office. It contains on its committee ExxonMobil representatives and the representatives of all the 5G operators in the world. Citizens Online, through a certain Gail Bradbrook, launched Extinction Rebellion. So that tells you where Extinction Rebellion comes from, and those of you who read the leaflets I gave out make it clear. And the significant thing about Extinction Rebellion is of course it's to promote the CO2 store.
Piers, can we just ask the audience, everybody knows what the Extinction Rebellion is?
Do they? I don't know. Hands up those who know what Extinction Rebellion is.
From the States.
Hands up who
doesn't. Yeah, hands up who doesn't. Who doesn't?
And who doesn't? Hands up
Just
those
quickly tell them
okay.
what it is.
It's a climate alarm campaign telling us that, well, it claims that the United Nations Special Report 15, SR 15, says the world is going to end in 20 years unless we do something about it, or 15 or 12 years actually. SR 15 doesn't actually say that, it says we should get something sorted within 12 years. However, the media are interpreting it in a most alarmist way, so it's been used to get children marching around saying we want the truth, we want action. right?
And people glue themselves to public buildings
They do.
and generally hold up the traffic and create a lot of trouble in London.
And they,
That's what
they've got
extinction
Waterloo,
does.
they've got Waterloo Bridge, and me and some others when they're holding up placards saying CO2 is good for you, and they freaked out. We said to them, look, the world's not going to end in 12 years. They, what? Don't be ridiculous. And they want the world, they want to die. I don't know. It's a death cult.
Death cult.
That's the point. It is a death cult. But a kind of significant thing about this is that, look, if we went there and blocked Waterloo Bridge to protest about the selling of arms to Yemen, we wouldn't be there for more than 10 minutes. But they were left there for 3 days. So it's improved from on high, and Gail Bradbeck herself said so on Sky TV. She said, the governments want us to do this to enable them to do what they know needs to be done. Okay? The Davos crew, i.e. World Economic Forum, the ones that meet every year in Davos, the Davos junket, as it's known, for the super rich, they've just produced a green report which says we've got hardly no time to save the planet, so we're going to have to get lots of money to spend trillions to save the planet. And the biggest 72 corporations around the world have loads of money locked away, which means they want to take it away. Well, if you're going to die in 12 years, then you don't need a pension fund, do you? So, you know, I'm certain what they want to do is rob those pension funds to do some gigantic wind farm project, an electric whatever, you know, solar farm project. But that money will go through the banks, and they will save the banks from the impending doom, because already Deutsche Bank is illegally operating, you know, they all are. So there is a huge economic crisis coming, a bank crisis, unless they intervene. So as far as I'm concerned, they're all linked together. And the CO2 story holds it together ideologically. A lot of things together. And it also holds 5G into it, because you need 5G to run your smart meter to save the planet. And incidentally, that also means that we can watch and control everything you do. And also means that if there's enough 5G hitting you, then we might be able to neuter you and stop your children growing. And the same people have got an agenda in their minds that there's too many people in the world. And they do have a blueprint, I don't know if you know this, but it assumes the population of Britain in about 20 years' time will be 15 million. 15, i.e. 3/4 are gone. Where have they gone? Well, if people are all neutered, you know, I know, they just won't be there, will they? Anyway, and that is doom and gloom, but the point is we've got to have more, you know, united action of all sorts, and I really thank all those people that have raised the 5G issue. I mean, it's done in other places. There's a guy called John Kitson who's been very effective. If you go to weatheraction.com, and apart from buying forecasts, just go down the list and you'll see videos from John Kitson and others about exposing 5G, Mark Windows, Windows on the World and so on, doing the stuff. So now, can I move on? I'm glad you agree. All right. In terms of what I'm presenting, this was we did a pre-presentation in Catering about a week or so ago, in South London, that is, where, see, now we've got in London operating, there's Weather Action doing stuff, there's Polytechnic of North London Astronomical Forum doing stuff, which involves a very smart guy called Matthew Hepburn, which I mentioned to some of you. And we've got Electric Universe, which Phil is going to talk about tomorrow, where we've got a London UK group which is trying to get discussion going. We've got some going this year, but he's going to talk about it tomorrow. And we've also got the Bigger Picture, which is an internet TV show called Windows on the World from Mark Windows. So these things are like coming together, fighting against false narratives. And in particular now I'm going to go on about the electric universe and Sun-Earth relations. Dare I say it, I'm probably the only talk that's actually dealing with the title of this weekend, i.e. Dynamic Earth. Okay. And I intend to do in the first bit, one important thing is to get in your minds why the CO2 story fails absolutely. And now you can argue in 20 seconds with anybody and put them in their place. And then I'm going to go into more recent electrical discoveries of what is going on, which are really quite exciting. Okay, so now I've got to press buttons. Yeah, this has got, learn this. Just learn these things. I had them chanting this in Totnes last week. Man-made climate change does not exist. I know you people don't chant, but you could just think of it. CO2 levels are an effect, not a cause of changes in climate. Now that, for you guys, is pretty fundamental. And climate policy is not here to control you. Sorry, it's not here to control climate. It's to control you. Yeah. And when you hear about 5G and everything, it's crystal clear it is to control you. The reality of the world is now cooling and on the brink of a little ice age. And just to get the facts right, mankind's CO2 is only 4% of the total CO2, and that itself is a trace gas which is 0.04% of the atmosphere. So, you know, what we're asked to believe is that if the atmosphere is as high as Big Ben Tower, CO2 is 1.25 inches on top of that. And man's contribution to that 1.25 inches is a dab of bird on the top. And if you double that amount of bird on the top, then the world is going to end or something. I mean, it's insanity. It's insanity. That is what we are told to believe. Okay. It is bullshit. No. Oh, I mentioned it, sorry. Just to put you in the picture of current events, because you see, weather action, we can do things, we can predict when the sun is going to do something and how it will affect the Earth. We can predict appearance of sunspots or coronal mass ejections, when there's going to be extra geomagnetic activity, when there's going to be certain weather patterns in Britain, Ireland, Europe and the US of A, and we're expanding into Australia and other places. And we can do this months ahead. Now look, frankly, although I say it myself, each week we do something which is worth a Nobel Prize. But of course, the powers that be are not interested because it runs completely counter to the narrative they want to promote, even though it saves lives. End of June, early July, we predicted this little heat wave, Western Europe and so on, perfect, spot on. And now...
Sorry, can we move the globe so we can see this?
Ah, right.
Thank you.
Okay, you could...
Is that any better?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, because I don't need that yet. Very
Yeah,
good.
Piers, you've got a line going straight through where we are now. On the
What?
map of England. On the
line.
left.
Black
On the left,
line.
yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You've been blacked out.
Censored. Redacted, yeah.
But this is earlier on in the month anyway. The later graph also shows it warmer down there, but it shows the 8th to the 11th, R5 period. We warned, and I gave out leaflets about it, and again, if you go on weatheraction.com, you can print off that leaflet. It says there'll be extra solar activity, new sunspots. We've had a new sunspot. It also said extra, well, there'll be more storms and stuff coming down as far as England's concerned, big thunderstorms and so on. We just had a yellow warning from the Met Office issued today. We warned of this 13 weeks ago. And we also warned there will be increase of earthquakes and volcanism, and we've had both of those things. So I think you should cheer that. What was that?
The other mic. You dropped the mic.
Oh my God. Sorry. Should we go on phone? Oh, thank you very much. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, wow. Yeah, okay. Right. Okay, carry on. Okay, right. Okay, next one then. Just to show you that I'm going to flash through some of these very quickly because they're not, you know, that important. Just to show you that temperatures this year, there's no big deal. In fact, they've been, you know, very cold during parts of June and so forth in Britain. Just about my history, we'll put all this on the stuff, but I don't know where that brightly coloured T-shirt has gone, but just to say that I wouldn't be here but for the miners' strike of 1984, where I was in one of these creators of false narratives, I dare say, the International Marxist Group, Trotsky has set up, and we were campaigning to, you know, support the miners. And people said to me, Piers, is it going to be a cold winter? You know, winter of 84, 85. I said, look, I don't know. But they knew I'd been trying to do long-range forecasting. So they said, oh, look, go back and do it. I said, yeah, but it doesn't work. I can't do it. And they said, just do it, and then tell us. Because they wanted me just to say, yeah, it's going to be a cold winter, you see. So I did do it seriously, and I found, oh, yeah, you know, I've got to try some new ideas. And I said, it is going to be a very cold winter. And it was a very cold winter. So then I carried on, and it turned it into a commercial operation. So, you know, you've got Arthur Scargill and Margaret Thatcher to thank for my presence here. What's that?
Turn it on if you're going to use it.
Oh, right. We'll not drop it. Yeah, okay. Right, there's loads more stuff, but I was insured on the stock exchange for £1 million. And plan B was to, if you can imagine, there was a plan B to get rid of me, and they'd have £1 million. Okay. Getting the picture of the history, which are going to lead up to why the CO2 story is nonsense. The actual history of, I think this should be slightly closer to me actually. Am I right? Is it all right?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. History of CO2 in the last 600 million years is that CO2 has fluctuated violently. We're in a very low level of CO2. Last time it was as low as this was 300 million years ago. In fact, it wasn't probably that. So this is the lowest it's been for 600 million years. Temperatures have kind of, they go in, you know, warm or some intermediate and then colder, and we're at a colder bit here right now. So, you know, the idea that CO2 is causing anything there is just poppycock, because there's no evidence for it there. If you look in the last 10,000 years, where though you know here that the last 10,000 years is an interglacial. Before that we had an ice age, and before that we had another interglacial, and before that, and so forth. Now, there's arguments about these timescales or whatever, but nevertheless, we have had a series of ice ages and interglacials. Within the interglacials, you have peaks of warming and cooling. The last 9 peaks, we're in the 10th peak now, sub-peak, this 10th peak is colder than all of the last 9. All of them. Yet we're meant to have loads more CO2. Well, if they say we've got more CO2, I believe them. We have more CO2. But the idea that the CO2 is driving these peaks is poppycock. It's nonsense. There is no evidence for it. Okay. Oh, what's that do? Oh, that's to tell you what's coming next, I think. Oh, gosh. Oh well, I don't know what it is. All right. Anyway, yeah. They said since the last 10 years, temperature go up. They didn't. They stayed flat or actually went down. That was their many models of what should happen. This is what the balloon and satellite measurements show, temperatures static or falling. Now, important one to remember, we know statistically that solar activity, and we see a graph of this in a minute, basically drives world temperatures, magnetic and particle activity from the sun. And if you average out solar activity as measured by carbon-14 or whatever over 10 Hale cycles. 10 Hale cycle is a double 11 year. So the Hale cycle is a magnetic cycle of the sun. 10 of those separated out, and they kind of follow each other together. So therefore, temperatures would follow each other together. We are about here on this one. This is just a projection now. The red is a projection when he did this. This is what happened last time. The Dalton minimum is there. Napoleonic Wars, a lot of frost, freezing over of you know, frost off Northern Ireland and so forth. So there's no way to go other than down from that. You know, this is a smoothed out curve, so there's oscillations. But, you know, that is evidence projected forward. Just to show you there's a lot of very low solar activity, except when we say it can get higher, which is during these R5 periods and R4 periods. We've had very big success in showing, you know, this cold winter, 1718, for example. But just go past those. Greenland is actually getting more and more ice despite what you're told. We'll go past this because there's not time for it. Just to mention the heat wave of the world last summer, which the BBC told us the whole world was frying. And a lot, you know, kids believe this. Well, actually, we predicted it, this big south wind, we predicted all that. And specifically on the 30th of July last year, the average temperature of the land masses in the northern hemisphere wasn't above normal, it was 0.2 degrees below normal. Because this heating was relatively localised on the hemispheric scale. It was very cold in Russia and very cold in Japan and so forth. But the BBC doesn't tell you that. Only part of the story comes there. And it was cold in Australia as well, and it's getting extremely cold now, Australian winter now, of course. Very cold. That was last year, but now we've got the same similar things going on this year. Basic news is the mini ice age is here, i.e. we're in the foothills of it, if you like, the beginning of it, and there's been no turning back. And it all goes along with wild jet stream, i.e. very wavy jet stream. Now we're going to show the jet stream here, that these pictures will do. So the jet stream is the fast moving upper air which goes this way around the globe, and if it's coming up one way you're going to have a warm blast, and going down another way you'll have cold blast. Now during the CO2, extra CO2 model, the jet stream is going to move north because it's colder further north, so there's less area of cold and more area of warm. That's okay. And it's shorter, so it can't wiggle around so much. But in fact, what's happened in the last 5 or 10 years especially the last 2 years, is the jet stream's got longer and longer, and it's got more and more wavy. And when it gets wavy, you're going to get very cold blasts at times, and you'll also get some hot blasts, short hot blasts. And for example, in 16, is that it? Hello? Yes. Yeah. 1666, the Great Fire of London, you recall, that was in the middle of the Morning. But that time, 3 weeks before the Great Fire, there was what's called the Belgian wind, which proves you that bad things come from Brussels. The Belgian wind, which parched London, and then, you know, London caught fire. Allegedly, well, who knows, but on the Tower of London, on the monument, it said it was done by the Catholics. You know, the Popists were trying to kill us all. Well, the point is, there's always a hate object around when there's ever anything. But it was part of the mini ice age. That's what you have to understand, and it was a natural thing. So these extra bits of warmth we have are not a surprise. They're part of the whole picture. None of which can be explained by the CO2 story. So about this background. Yeah, that's very.
Oh, it's very Russian.
It does indeed. I don't know what's. Did I do something wrong?
No, it's loading.
Oh, is it?
Really?
Really?
No, I'd move on to the next slide myself.
Yeah, I don't know what
Yeah.
we shouldn't be showing all this background either. It's from some presentation I gave at a commodity trade, as you see, those leaves in the background of wheat. Anyway, okay. This will come in the second, sorry, not the second part. Later on I'm going to come to more of this, but just to show you that there's a lot more to it than the jet stream. There's a whole lot of electric currents going all over the place. Now, those get more active around the same time as the jet stream goes wild as well. And these, of course, are electrically and magnetically driven, there being electric currents. And just to see something about the difference between odd cycles and even cycles, there's a current sheet going out from the equatorial regions of the sun, and it obviously lashes into us at times, and it's tilted relative to us by 5 degrees. But the odd cycles have, the net flow is electrons coming out, and the even cycle is the protons that dominate. So these are obviously going to have different interactions with the Earth's magnetic field, apart from all the neutral particles having interactions in there. We predicted whole lots of extreme events won't go into these, but except for Hurricane Irene, and just tell you a little short story about that one. Hurricane Irene, about, I don't know, 12 weeks ahead, 8 weeks ahead, I can't remember. We predicted quite in some detail where it would form, Bahamas, where it was going to go, grazing the edge of the US of A. And I phoned up some NOAA people about it, and they were really excited. You know, they were researchers. Said, "Mr. Corbin, that's fantastic stuff." You know? And I warned them it wasn't going to hit America. It was going to, you know, stay out, and it did. Despite the fact Obama was bussing people all over the place to save the planet, right? But you know, these guys in NOAA, they're really interested. They said, "Oh, well, come back to us afterwards, Mr. Corbin. We'll have more time." I phoned them back, and it was as if I didn't exist. And then, you know, it was against the narrative from above. So they're more interested in promoting the narrative than saving lives. Okay, this was that heat in Russia, which we predicted, and when it was going to end. That one is another one of these R5 periods where we went into the details. But the interesting thing is that we predict that tropical storms, or any big storm, will shift to the right during an R5 period. This is concerning magnetic connections and a bit technical, but it did. That one did. And there were loads of extra geomagnetic activity when we said and so forth. And the storm was, its rate of deepening was greatest when there was most activity. And at the end of the activity, it started getting more shallow and so forth. Okay. Yeah, we've lost a bit of focus. Now, interesting one here. We had another R5. This is last 2018. The 28th of July to August the 1st. But there was very little. There was action, there was, you know, storms and this and that, but very little extra geomagnetic activity. So what's going on? We had like a chain with a missing link, but we still had the answer. So I think the answer probably was that there was Birkeland currents doing things. So it might be that the Birkeland currents are the biggest connection, and the things happening in the solar wind are actually a minor part, relatively, but it's just we can see those better. So this stuff, we really need to research more and more to find out, you know, can we watch these things? And so that is really very important. Now, before we go on to like more exciting things about electric connections, I just want to get clear to you in your minds what's wrong with the CO2 story. And the first thing to is learn this picture, and then go home and make a model of this. And you can make water flow uphill, and you could, imagine that, you could power a motor from this, you could be a billionaire after a week. Anyway, of course, the point is, this is a two-dimensional representation of three-dimensional reality. But you see, with that, you can represent anything you want. Now, that is the point about physics, especially theoretical physics, that these equations are merely equations. They're partial representations, or even incorrect representations, of reality. So once you've got those, you can play around with them as if they are reality and produce forecasts which are nonsense. And the CO2 story is one of these false narratives made out of partial examination of the equations of physics, some of which may be incorrect or not. The arrows of radiation used to explain it all are part of a false narrative. Anyway, you've been told that 97% of world scientists believe, etc., which is untrue. The real data is about 3% believe, something like that. It's all online, I won't go into it. Now, this is important. Data after the end of the ice age before last, I think, it doesn't matter which one. Antarctic temperatures, time goes this way on this graph. Antarctic temperatures go up, and then later CO2 levels went up. Later. That's 800 years later. Now, that's a long time. At the same time as this, you're going to have shorter fluctuations in and out of the surface. But why you can get these 800 lag, I'll tell you. But that is very important, that the CO2 lags temperatures on these larger timescales, and it does also on short timescales of a few years. Now, I managed to make Joanna Haigh answer a question on this in front of children, which was greatly embarrassing for her, at Imperial College, some open day or something. And she said, "Oh yeah, well Piers is right, but what happens is extra CO2 comes off, as he says, and then that causes heating. And then we all know that it's important, we've got to fight CO2, haven't we?" And they all cheered, and then she moved on to something else. Okay, if what she said is true, then there should be a peak of CO2, which should then be followed by an extra peak of temperature. But she didn't bother to check. There's the peak of CO2, and the peak of temperature comes before it, not after it. So you should applaud that, she was talking nonsense. So they have no evidence whatsoever. But it's interesting she gave that concession, which was a suicidal concession. Now, how does this all work? This is quite interesting. In the North Atlantic, we've got this system of currents, right? And these are cold currents there, the blue ones, which get subducted underneath the ocean. Now, there's basically two layers to ocean. There's an upper layer which is warm and a lower layer which is cold, and they basically don't mix. Now, when we've got a warm period, like the medieval warm period, there's going to be extra CO2 boiled off, if you like, bubbled off the upper levels. And then you're going to have a certain amount of melting of the Greenland as a consequence, and you're going to have very cold water around here, which then gets subducted. So, and that cold water will grab any CO2, especially extra CO2, and suck it into the deep ocean. And then it will go round. So there's a diagram. It'll get carried away into this diagram. So it goes like this. It takes 500, 600, 700, 800 years to come out again. That is extra rich cold water, but it's coming out. It's going to get warmer and go pop. So the extra CO2 now is the delayed effect from the medieval warm period. Okay. Amen. So that anyway. Okay. Now, back to this kind of immediate physics. You see, the idea that it's all heat into the air coming, warming up the ocean or something is, in all probability, not correct. Interesting little diagram here from a, can't remember his name, but it'll be on the presentation, it'll be all online. This area here is very important, a kind of gateway to the Arctic. So when does warm currents go in there and when do they not? And he looked at geomagnetic activity and the extra currents and showed that often when there's extra geomagnetic activity you get extra currents, extra flux of this heat, and lower geomagnetic activity, lower currents. So there's a direct connection. Now I'm not putting forward the physics of this at this point in time, but it's not something going through the atmosphere. Now that is very important, because you see the sea has got massive heat capacity, and if you move a bit of sea around that's warmer, then this is going to change things hugely, much more than waiting for a bit of air, which is tiny specific heat, to do something. And we're going to talk about more of that a bit later on. Okay, now back to the question, what is nonsense about the CO2 story? One is, learn this one, CO2 levels are an effect, not a cause of changes in climate. 2, man's only 4% of the total. 3, the sea rules, not man. And 4, all the extremes happening now are the wrong type of extremes. They're extremes from wild jet stream. They're not extremes from a jet stream move north in a generally warmer, temperate region. Now, there's 50 times more CO2 in the sea than in the air. So it's obvious if you change the sea temperature a bit, the CO2 will come off. And if you put too much CO2 in there, you drive your car twice as far as before, will that CO2 do anything other than excite Extinction Rebellion? Well, it will. It'll go into the sea. That's what it'll do. The sea's waiting there. It's a great big sink of the stuff. And if you got rid of all the CO2, it would only increase the amount of CO2 in the air by 2 parts in 50, or whatever. Yes. Tiny. Sorry, 1 part in 50. It also means that when you... the idea of bleaching or whatever of coral is due to extra CO2 is nonsense, because if you warm the sea, they say, oh, the extra CO2 is going into the sea. Well, hang on. If you warm the sea, CO2 comes out of the sea. It doesn't go into the sea. So there's less CO2 in the sea as a consequence of warming. We're talking about the upper parts of the sea, the bit that interacts. Now, this is the story you're going to have to learn. This is what you're told. Extra CO2, radiation from the ground, it's absorbed by a bit of sky, and it comes back and warms you. Okay. So I'm going to need a model here. Can someone be a model? Oh, there's a model. Do you want to be CO2 or normal air?
I'll be CO2.
You'll be CO2. Okay. She's CO2 and I'm just normal air. All right. Now, and Lucy's the ground. Oh, no, she's grounded. All right. Who's feeling grounded? You feeling grounded?
I'm grounded.
Lucy, you give
Yeah,
me
Lee,
grounded.
you
All right. Lee can be the ground. Okay. So he's radiating away to us. Okay. And we can be, well, for the sake of argument, you're not here yet, but I'm standing here. He's radiating to me, and he's in equilibrium with me. That's fair enough. Which is a temperature. Okay. And then you come along, aha, and you absorb more heat. Maybe, well, whatever. You were cold and you warm up. Well, what's going to happen to you? Are you going to get hotter than him? No, you'll be the same temperature. You'll warm up to his temperature and radiate. And if you reach his temperature, you are then going to be radiating to the sky, the same as he was radiating to the sky via me. So there's no difference. There's completely no difference. And put another way, okay, thank you very much, Morton. That's all right. Put another way, basic thermodynamics, radiation thermodynamics, the temperature of a body in a radiation bath is independent of the colour of the body. Red, green, black, grey, blue, whatever, in a radiation box is the same temperature. Because if it wasn't, you can just run a heat engine between the hot one and the cold one, like we could have done. You see, so there you are. You do it with bottles, bottle of CO2, bottle of less CO2, the extra one. It does get warmer quicker, absolutely true. And this is the point where they stop the experiment. They tell the children that. But if you wait long enough, well, it's the same temperature. And the CO2 one will cool quicker. So Chantal will get hot quicker, and she will cool quicker. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, you are. So you agree. Must be true then. But their theory is Chantal gets hotter somehow and stays hotter. Well, she might do, but you know, it's not possible. It's against the first law of thermodynamics. Heat's going up a temperature gradient. It's against the second law of thermodynamics, because from the temperature difference we can make a heat engine to run forever, which we want to do by other ways, but you know. So it violates the first and second laws of thermodynamics. Now, they know that is bullshit. Sorry, nonsense. See, I was at a meeting in the Russian Academy of Sciences in 2004, where the Met Office were invited along. I don't know if you heard this story. Probably, have you heard this story? No, good, okay. The Met Office were invited there, or they invited themselves there, to tell the Russians to sign the Kyoto Protocol. Me and others were asked from around the world to be there to meet them. Andrei Ilyanov, Putin's chief scientific advisor, hadn't told the Met Office that we were going to be there. But out of politeness, he phoned them when they were at Heathrow Airport. He said, by the way, Mr. Corbyn and Richard Lindzen, and he listed them. They're all there to join in the discussion. And they said, what? We're not coming there. We're not coming there. Oh, sorry. Is that on? Yes. Yeah. We're not coming there. But he turned to us in the conversation. I knew they would, and sure enough they did. They got on the plane and they were really annoyed when they came along the plane. Anyway, they put forward that narrative I just said, you know, about dynamic equilibrium of photons at every level in the atmosphere, which is bullshit. And during the break, they called us aside, each of us, said, what are you doing working with these people, Piers? You're better than them. They all said that to each of us, to, you know, break us up. So, but none of us felt the debate. At one point I was talking to two of us together, and he said, look, the idea of equilibrium at every level of the atmosphere for photons is nonsense. And the guy said, oh yeah, we know it's nonsense, but we use this in schools. That's what he said. And I said, yeah, but you're actually in the Russian Academy of Sciences now. And he said, and then he went off. So, but they do have another story, which actually is a bit more scientific, but I better just show you why this is wrong too. Right, the real story is, and it kind of works, as you go up in the atmosphere, it gets cooler because of expansion of adiabatic expansion of a gas, or if you throw up an object like an atom or a molecule, it goes slower higher up because of gravity and so forth. So it's going to be lower temperature higher up. Fair enough. So you go up, and at the top of the atmosphere, radiation somewhere has to escape into space. That level where it can escape will be moved higher up because there's more CO2 or water vapour around to stop it escaping. So that makes sense. So therefore that radiation level's higher up, so you go down, it's going to be warm at the surface. Okay, well that's a fair argument. One thing against that is also, if CO2, the extra CO2 will make plants transpire faster because they're growing faster, and that will cause cooling. But that apart, is there anything wrong with this? Well, there actually is something wrong with this. Because if you've got these levels higher up, the level higher up's is further up, but there's also going to be a day-night fluctuation. And the problem with standard meteorology is they leave out non-equilibrium thermodynamics. They just assume everything. As you know, all through physics, you just get rid of this problem. I mean, general relativity's got 81 terms in its equations. Well, they never do that. They say, oh, we just choose this one, you see. So it's... Anyway. Right, so you're going to have a range of temperature fluctuations in the upper atmosphere. Well, this range will go up when there's more CO2. Just like the bottles, if Chantal has got extra CO2 in here, she'll get hotter and colder in a bigger range. Well, okay, bigger range, then what happens? The radiation goes to the fourth power. The average of the fourth powers is bigger than the fourth power of the average, right? 1, 2 and 3. 1 to the fourth plus 3 to the fourth is 1 plus 81, which is 82. Half that is 41, okay? 2 to the fourth is 16. So it's obvious. More CO2 or any greenhouse gas or cardboard or water or whatever flying around will make a bigger range day and night and cause more radiation into space. It'll be cooling. Cooling, not a warming. Now, they said, because of extra CO2, there's going to be warming in the upper atmosphere after 10 years of extra CO2 between 2000 and 2010, and they sent out to measure it. What did they measure? That was their theory, and this is what happened. It was a cold spot. So they were wrong. You should cheer that as well. So both aspects of the CO2 story are wrong. Now, a lot of the scientists in there notice that, and I tell them that sometimes, and they say, look, I've got mouths to feed. Okay, well, enough said. You know, Galileo had a problem with those sort of people. All right, what actually happened in 2000 to 2010 was actually, they said temperatures were going to go up, they went down, and we'll skip past this stuff quickly. So what they did, they didn't drop the theory, they changed the facts. And you may or may not know, but it's astounding, and just before he died a few days ago now, Christopher Booker had exposed, well, he's always exposed in these things, but he said one of the biggest scandals in modern science is the adjustment of temperatures by official bodies. You know, they get data from Iceland and just change it. NOAA changes it and puts it out. You know, it's appalling. The reality is we've tricked downwards by at least, we've tricked upwards by at least half a degree. And the reality, as I mentioned at the start of all this show on Saturday morning, that the real temperatures are probably at least half a degree or even 1 degree below what they're saying they are. And the warmest periods in the last 100 years was actually the 1930s, especially in the USA, which is, to be fair, the best measured places in the world, the best measured continent, that's for sure. They predicted all these things, runaway warming, hasn't happened, massive ice melts, it hasn't happened, they just only tell us half the story. The end of snow, my God, the end of snow. No, we have not had the end of snow in the Northern Hemisphere, we've got massive extra snow. Many things we predicted would happen. One very significant thing about the mini ice age is giant hail. And we've had lots more hail events as predicted. The fails of climate change physics, we've been through these, the experts are lying. But I would say, you know, you've got to, well, okay. There are some good things about green policies, i.e. saving birds, but of course with the 5G and wind turbines they're doing the opposite of saving birds. I won't go into Global Law Summit, you could do that under questions, it was really very amusing. But time, yes, important. Right, so where does the CO2 story come from? It's given it's a pack of lies, why hasn't it been exposed? Now, the history of science shows there's many false stories going around, and interest groups protect them, but this one's been going for longer than normal. Like, the opposition to continental drift, that lasted about, I don't know, 20 years maybe? But then it was given up. People still accepted the continent's drifted. Well, I mean, if you look out, I can't see this continent moving. No, it's not. Clearly it's not. So, you know, the people who said it were regarded as a bit mad, like people who said the moon landings never happened, for example. But, did I say that? I didn't say anything like that. I wouldn't comment on the moon landings. Quote by the Club of Rome. They said, look, we'd like to have something to just get people excited about something, to help us build towards, you know, well, world government. See, there are people who believe in world government. Who will be in charge of world government? Well, I can tell you, the super rich will be in charge of world government. And I think we've... Yeah, the next one. Edenhofer, the chairman of IPC Working Group 3, he said a few years ago that one must say clearly that we redistribute de facto the world's wealth by climate policy. Isn't that generous of him? Okay. One has to free oneself from the illusion that the international climate policy is environmental policy. This has almost nothing to do with environmental policy anymore. And he's in charge of one of these research groups. So he's saying, I'm an imposter. Okay. And that's when he said it. Okay. Now, they are redistributing wealth, but not downwards. I mean, the kids might believe it's downwards, but it's upwards. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. So what do we know about CO2 reduction? It does not reduce production of CO2, so-called, because they're destroying industries, but they relocate the industry. They remove industry from northeast England, put it into India. And you pay for it. You pay to have it relocated, because it's all goodness, saving the planet, blah, 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 blah. You guys use your jobs, or send the jobs to India, and the planet is saved. Well, actually, no, the planet's not saved. There's the same amount of CO2 comes out. All that's happened is you've lost your jobs, and you've paid for it. That's a wonderful system, isn't it? And it pushes up energy and oil prices. Which, how much time have we got?
Oh, I don't know, I lost track.
All right, okay, that's good.
Quite fast.
I don't know where that takes us.
What?
Okay.
How much more you...
Yeah, okay, we've got a good one. The one about energy prices going up, we'll talk about that later on. Facts about renewable energy revolution is this much on the world scale. That's all it is. The idea of making this 100% is completely insane. It means the end of civilization, completely. We've got to go back to the Stone Age to do that. It's a nonsense. We've got to distinguish between fake green and true green. Wind farms, or prayer wheels as they might be called, are killing birds and insects at a great rate. I mean, there's 1,000 tons of insects killed in Germany last year by wind farms. And these are pollinating creatures. And the springs have got shorter, so we want more pollinating creatures, not less. We can go into all those in detail, but electric cars are coal-powered cars, and they're inefficient, so they're making more CO2. The Drax power station is burning wood chips, which is, the pollution from that is equivalent to increasing the diesel cars on the British roads by 25%. This is insane, as policies. 5G, of course, is doing all sorts of things. So we've got to destroy all these sacred cows, and what we have to do is enjoy life and so forth. And keep honest, true green policies. So there are some good things around, like saving sparrows and so forth. Just as an aside, there's a lot of things wrong in physics now. A lot of crises going on. There's measurements, so you can see them in any physics place. The particle physics ideas, fundamental ideas, are producing results which are 4 sigma from reality. So, but they still tell me, oh well, Piers, it's just, yeah, we'll find another theory that fits. Another theory that fits, okay? Well, there's something fundamentally wrong going on there. What we have to do next is to have action for life instead of Extinction Rebellion, Death Cult. And I've got a little, here we are, Action for Life. Hashtag Action for Life. So look for that on the internet. But I would just sort of in summary say, before I go into some stuff, a little bit about stuff, electric stuff, just 10 minutes of extra electric, or 5 minutes. The left-right labels are failing. The important thing now is actually accountability versus globalisation. That's what I would say. And, you know, I've got friends on the left and on the right, which, you know, well, they agree this is a crucial thing. Orwell said, in a society based on lies, speaking the truth is a revolutionary act. And that applies to everything political and everything scientific we're doing here. Okay. And what we've got to do is fight, and we'll just end with this and then I'll change the presentation to the next one. We've got to fight for proper accountability and an evidence-based approach and honesty in science and politics. Thank you. Now we've got to switch over to another one very quickly.
Or are you going to do some more now?
Yeah, it's more now, but it is short. It's the crucial graphs about electric. But I need someone who can help shift that. Can you find that one we did?
Yeah.
The other one?
Yeah,
Because it's your machine. This will only be 10 minutes, Nick. He could, then I could do this one and then my other one, yeah. Well, it depends what Nick wants to do. No, I think it'd work best if I did this now, because it's very short, it's 5 minutes.
Alright, yeah. Then what are you going to talk about after that?
Then we're going to stop, and then Nick will talk, and then I'm going to come back to
But you haven't got any slides to
I haven't got any slides for the last one.
No.
So, yeah, this is it. We're there already. Full screen.
Get some questions and discussion.
That's it. Fantastic. All right. Thank you very much. Continuing.
It's on. It's okay.
We're on, yes. Continuing. This is to bring us more into the dynamics, Earth dynamics stuff. Right. As far as I'm concerned, in meteorology, we need the globe for this, there's 3 big questions which are basically not addressed properly by standard meteorology. Are the quasi-equilibrium assumptions valid? Because that's what standard meteorology runs on, as does most physics and thermodynamics. Do temperature changes require heat inputs? Or do heat inputs always lead to temperature changes? That type of thing. Third one, what changes the jet stream? Okay. Right, so let's move on quickly. Right. Are quasi-equilibrium assumptions valid? So, you know, standard meteorology says, oh, heat in, heat out, everything's equal. Well, actually, hang on. During a mini ice age, the whole world is cooling. There's great amounts of heat are being subtracted. Going into a real ice age, there's vast amounts of heat comes out. There's no way this is equilibrium. There's no way, completely no way. So Q dot equals 0 is a nonsense. It might happen some of the time, but, you know, in important times, that is untrue. And the important times are, dare I say it, the important times. So the rate of change of heat content, you see it might be leading to changes of state. But one very important thing, and this is happening now, would you get these wild jet stream, bigger area to the north, what happens is the area of extent of snow in the winter gets bigger. And as I said before, this year the area of extent of snow is the most extent has been the highest for 50 years. That means there's extra reflectivity. So there's a feedback mechanism then which means less heat input from the sky. So that is going to make cooling. And next year it's going to be more. So you can see, once you get into a mini ice age, you can gallop down quickly, as that graph showed before. And we are at the knee. Okay. We went into the day-night errors, which they've been ignoring. So that is enough on that one. Do heat temperatures require... well, no, they don't, because as I said, you see, the area, if the area of cold, the jet stream moves, makes the area that's colder bigger, well, it is colder then. If you measure a surface average, it's colder. So, like, if you get a table and put a block of some snow on it, that's a certain average temperature, spread the snow out, it's a lower average temperature. But there's no heat change, nothing's happened, we've just changed the surface. And you see, measures of surface temperature is what meteorology relies on. It's not a measure of total heat or anything. It's a measure of surface temperature, which is important for farmers. Right, oh, this is a bit of science, so sometime I'll give a fuller presentation on all this stuff. But the reason why the jet stream gets longer is something to do with the transfer of rotation. I don't know if, is anybody here familiar with what all this means?
No.
Push the globe down again, can't see.
Huh?
They can't see.
Oh, put the globe down again.
The world is in.
Yeah, well, the surface integral of curl of V is the scalar line integral of V dot dl, which is the speed and the length. This means the average speed of the jet stream and the total length. So that gets bigger when this rotation from the sun gets forced in more. So that's why the jet stream gets longer. We'll come to that some other day in full. Now, well, we've done that picture already. This is just to show you again, well, this is important, that this is a Fourier plot. Anyone here familiar with Fourier plots? Yes, 1, 2, 3, that's good, okay. This is just a little graph to show you what are the big signals in solar activity. The main signal of geomagnetic activity, which is the magnetic field of the sun wobbling around due to the solar wind hitting it, that gets more every 11 years, as do the sunspots. However, the world temperatures do not follow that. They follow a 22-year thing, which is the connectivity, the magnetic connectivity between the magnetic field of the sun and the earth. And that changes direction, you see. The sun changes direction. So it has a good connection in odd cycles and a bad connection in even cycles. And then with lower solar activity, it's a generally bad connection, but it's badder when we're in even cycle, which is now. Right. What changes the heat? Well, there's lots of stuff. There's internal causes. See, volcanoes now are increasing. The underside of the West Antarctic there's masses of volcanoes. There's actually thousands of undersea volcanoes, ignored by standard meteorology. But these actually get more during mini ice ages, which is interesting. The Sun-Earth link, though, is direct. It's not cosmic rays, because if it was cosmic rays, we'd have an 11-year cycle of temperatures. We do not. We have a 22-year cycle. The electric universe idea, though, is, it says more and more about magnetic links. And I mentioned one of those, just showed you that one earlier. We're going to go past this. That's about how solar wind changes the rotation of the Earth by very tiny bits, which gives you northerly currents on the European coast. We've seen that diagram before, we've seen that one before. This one we've seen before, but okay, there's an extra bit of information on this one. There's been some recent analyses which show there's a 14-year cycle in a lot of currents, 14 years. And what is that about? If you analyse solar data, there is a 14-year cycle in solar activity near the the equator of the sun. So there's a solar signal directly separate from the 22-year signal, which is shown in ocean currents, which is very important because, as I said, the transport by ocean currents is going to be more than by air. And here, well, what's it all about? Well, okay, this tells you what it's all about, and I'm sure we'll agree with this. You see, the sea is a weak conductor. So there's going to be electric currents in it, and so on. But we didn't go into that, but just to say you can, work out how deep the effect of changing magnetic fields will be in the ocean. And it is pretty deep. I can't read the figure there, but it's like kilometres, right? So there are things going on which will affect the oceans directly, and they're electrical. They're electrical. And we are probably getting to the end of this. I think that may be... No, we've done that one before. Sorry, we didn't do that. We just passed that. So, what causes weather extremes? Jet stream changes. What moves the jet stream? It's changes in solar activity. And the biggest link is, well, the only link is magnetic and particle, and probably directly to the oceans. And these things are predictable. And if governments cared, they would fund me by millions of pounds. But I'm looking forward to that.
Would you accept money from the tourists, Pierce?
Do I take money from the Tories? Well, I'll take money from any government, yes. Yeah. Well, I'll have to think about that. No, don't answer that question. Sorry, something in my ear saying, Piers, don't answer that question. Yeah, well, you know, I do have to be careful sometimes. I don't know where this ends, actually. Oh, it almost ends there. Well, yeah, just to say, this is reality. Well, my view of reality. There is more to it, I'm sure. But solar activity drives the solar wind. This is modulated by the moon, which we didn't go into this time, but it gives a 60-year cycle with the magnetic effects of the sun and the moon. That modulates the jet stream, which gives you weather. And in parallel, you have extra volcanism and earthquakes. Under certain circumstances which affect the weather, and altogether that surface temperature gives you life, the gas of life, which is CO2. The effect is not the CO2 driving the weather and driving the jet stream and driving the metrosphere and driving solar activity. If you drive your car fast back to Bath, it will not cause a solar flare. Do not worry, and we will end there. On with objectively.
Bravo, well done, Piers. Thank you very much, Piers, that's great. One of the things I happened to notice, they were talking about the genocide that happened in South America, 60 million people who died during effectively during the Maunder Minimum.
Yeah.
And they tried to say that the Maunder Minimum was caused by the fact that all these people who died in South America were no longer planting crops and all the rest of it. All the trees grew up and took all the CO2 out of the atmosphere, and that's what I read that on the BBC.
Except that's an effect after a cause.
You couldn't make it up because they're so desperate not to accept the reality of something like the Maunder Minimum. It's extraordinary. We'll have like a 2-second break, if you're patient, and then we'll have.
Well, we don't need
Nick.
one.
Nick. I mean,
Nick's got
unless
to
people want to.
My bum hurts.
Exactly. There's only so much sitting
So have a
down.
big break, then you have Nick, and then you have me again.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
then I promise you that it's supper. The supper really will be on time. Yeah. See you back.